Hey everybody, this is Activities Across Grade Levels. Every other week or so, twice a month, we are looking to bring you something interesting that you can apply in different ways across grade levels, hence the name. And this week, we got a treat for you. Cool strategies for students with vision impairments. And we have a guest with us who's going to be telling us all sorts of good things. I am going to get the captions going because that is exactly why I have that slide there. And Robin, when we get to you, you might click on the captions piece as well for that. So we'll pass out a few thank yous along the way. First of all, thank you for everybody for just thinking in terms of seeing what we've got to offer. Our next shindig will be on December the 3rd, right? And then after that, it'll be early January, since we won't be doing something during, say, finals week or whatever you call it, where you are. My name is Rushton. I run Next Vista for Learning. This is the organization that runs these webinars as well. Its main thing is a library of videos by and for teachers and students everywhere, free to use, free to contribute to, free to download from, all for a student audience, all screen content. My own little attempt to save the universe from ignorance, one creative video at a time. Thank you very much. All right. And thank yous to the good folks at the Krause Center for Innovation at Foothill College and all the Merit 20 people who are watching this live or in recording. Thank you to all the good folks in Fowler Unified. We borrow Susan for this webinar from their good graces, and we appreciate that they too are benefiting from the stuff that we share in the webinar. All the people in the Long Island University Master's Program in Ed Tech. Thank you to Betty and Mike and all of your students for taking part in what we do. We pass out a thanks to our man Richard of Free Tech for Teachers, who is over 15,000 blog posts into sharing ideas, which is pretty stunning. Earlier today, we had our 27th episode of the show He and I Do on taking questions and sharing cool stuff. And if you are interested in that, just let us know, and we will make sure you can get to all the archives for that. So nice to meet you. I want to introduce my co-host, who, along with me today, will be stepping aside mostly as we have our buddy Robbin in to explain a bunch of things. But Susan, tell us about yourself.
Hi, friends. Hello, hello. My name is Susan Stewart. I'm an instructional technology teacher on special assignment. I'm a tech coach from Central California. I'm really excited here to learn more about this topic because this is something new to me. So I'm really, really glad to be here learning with you today.
Awesome. My name is Rushton. I'm a former Japanese language high school teacher and a former principal, and now I run my little nonprofit. Well, we are excited to introduce you to Robbin Clark, and Robbin will tell us more about herself. I am going to stop sharing so that she can pick up from there, but there is all kinds of goodness that she has put together for this webinar, and we are excited to have you here. Robbin, how good for you to be with us. Thank you again for the time.
Oh, well, I love it. So thank you, of course, for having me. Hello, everyone. My name is Robbin Clark, and currently I live in Utah, and I work at the Utah Schools for the Deaf and the Blind in the Blind School. But I also have a great little home at the Foundation for Blind Children in Arizona, and I get to do a lot of great instructional coaching and support at many other schools for the blind across the country. So it just means I get to go to a lot of places and I get to work with a lot of great teachers.
Nice.
A little bit about me, just so you know, why am I even listening to her? I have been in the field now for about 17 years. It's kind of crazy for me to say that because I look in the mirror and think, no, I just started teaching. What are you talking about? But it's true. I started my career as a teacher for students who are deaf blind in a self-contained classroom for elementary age students. I then went on to work with early intervention. I don't know if everybody's familiar with that, but that's our babies birth to 3. And I wanted to do early intervention because I wanted to work with families. My mother is blind, how I got into the field. She's never seen me. And working with families was really important to me because I could always see the effects of my mother's blindness and her education, how that caused cracks in the family. And there was always some different things there. So I really wanted to work with families about what it was like when you just realized your whole world is flipped upside down when you hear the words, "Your baby is blind." And it was great, and I loved it. From there, I went on to become something called a vision rehabilitation therapist. Don't know what that means? That's okay. A lot of people don't actually. Think of it as an occupational therapist for blind people. And I was really privileged to get a great start in Connecticut at the Services for the Blind there. And as fate or luck would have it, this job was with children. And I didn't even know that when I got started. So, at any rate, when I was getting my master's degree, they kept talking about the words rehabilitation, but they were talking about children. And I worked with children. And I was like, how can an 8-year-old go through rehabilitation when she's never really had habilitation? And that's when I learned something called the expanded core curriculum. And I'm going to give you a little sprinkling about that as I teach you a little bit more about students with vision impairments. But this expanded core curriculum is now what I've spent most of my career focusing on. I've moved around. I've been in Las Vegas. I've been in Connecticut. I've lived in California. And now I'm here in Utah. And that's what I supervise at the School for the Blind is this special curriculum for children with vision impairments. I get to work with our elementary program. I supervise a high school and college program right now. So what you need to know is you're in good hands with somebody who really understands the unique needs of children with vision impairments. And I hope to give you guys a little bit of information so that when you get a child with a vision impairment in your classroom, you will feel like you know what to do. Because truth be told, most teachers, their eyes go very big and they go, "What? I don't know Braille." And they freak out. So deep breath in. We're going to learn how awesome these students are. Now, I want you to know one important thing about vision impairments. When we talk about the disability spectrum, there is something called high incident disabilities, and there's something called low incident disabilities. High incident disabilities are something like autism. A lot of people have seen autism. The classrooms have a lot of students in them. But then you go all the way down the disability spectrum to low incident disabilities. And that's where you're going to find blindness. Deafness is usually right above us, deaf blindness right under us, but blindness, we're at the end. And that means there's not as many kids out there with a vision impairment. In fact, if we hear that there is more than 3 or 4 blind kids at one school, we say, that's a lot of blind kids at that school. Wow, what's going on there? And that's just because vision impairment is a low incident disability. I find that most people have never even met a blind person before, or you might have and you don't realize it. And I'm going to show you why you might not have realized you've met somebody with a vision impairment. So I am going to share my screen right now with you. And I want you to know, as I'm describing all of those things, I'm actually showing you how you can do accessibility. I'm going to click present. And if luck is with me, it's going to go right to the slide that I'm really on. Crossing my fingers, it's populating on the screen right now, and it is great. So you are looking at my slide, part 1, and this is about blindness and visual impairment. So you're looking at a picture of a notebook, and it's got lockers on the side. I hope everybody's catching. I'm audio describing as I'm talking. See how simple it was? I'm making this accessible in case you have a vision impairment. All right. So a lot of information on this slide, but I'm going to walk you through it. The title of this slide is called The Unique Needs of Children with Vision Impairments. I want you to know that blindness is a spectrum disability that has 4 main subgroups. So before I move on, make sure you hear this. Vision impairment is a spectrum disability. Usually when I say spectrum, you think autism, because autism is a spectrum disability, and so is blindness. The 4 main subgroups, of course, either the main ones, are blindness, low vision, something called CVI, and deaf blindness. And I'm going to walk you through, and when you get this PowerPoint, it's going to have all of this information on there. So the first group is blindness. These are children that have a significant vision loss to total blindness. They might have light perception. They might be able to see shadows. Normally, when I say vision impairment, this is who you're thinking of. These are students that read Braille, although they can be auditory readers as well. They require sequential and explicit instruction. They use a white cane. They benefit from hands-on or tactile experiences to provide greater concept development. So totally blind, no vision, very, very little vision. They might be able to see that you're standing there, but they couldn't tell you any details about you. So remember, blindness doesn't always mean I can't see anything. In fact, most blind people can see something, light, a shadow, a shape. They can see something. Now, our next subgroup is the second most popular group. In fact, in some areas, this is the more popular group. These are people with low vision. These are people that may read large print and or Braille, but they probably read a lot of large print. They're usually auditory readers. They'll listen to their books. They have some good usable vision, meaning that, again, they could see you, they could see the color of the shirt you're wearing, but when it came to your facial expression or a fine detail, they might not be able to see that. But people with low vision have a lot of usable vision. And I'm going to show you what it looks like later on. What do they see? Now, these people may or may not use a cane. Sometimes we call them part-time cane users because perhaps they need to use a white cane at night when it's dark because their vision's gone. They benefit from optical devices such as magnifiers and assistive tech devices like a CCTV. They may have issues with glare, depth perception, and inconsistent vision. So if you're doing any kind of Post-it notes to important things, I just gave you 3 key important words: glare, depth perception, and inconsistent vision. For these students in the classroom, when you're writing on a smart board or using it, there could be a lot of glare coming back that makes it difficult for them to look at the screen or to see what you're talking about. Depth perception. They might not see a stair. They can see that there's stairs there, but they don't see the individual stairs. Or inconsistent vision. Perhaps during the day they can see very well, but at night they can't. I'll give you some more examples in a second. They may need modifications such as contrast. So bold, maybe white on black or black on white. They might need to use a reading stand or something called eccentric viewing to look at objects. Eccentric viewing means they need to turn their head in order to use their vision because perhaps they don't have central vision, so they can't see directly in front of them. So they have to turn their head to the left in order to see and to use their peripheral vision. All right, our next 2 groups of students that we have, the first one is called CVI. This is cerebral or cortical vision impairment. Now, hopefully you're zoning in on the words cortical. It means of the brain. This is a special vision impairment. And this is where their eyes are perfect, intact. They might have something, but usually their eyes are good. It's their brain. Their brain has a hard time processing the visual information. Now, this is very common in children with multiple impairments, although it's not a requirement. We talk about something where we say their vision can be resolved, not fixed, resolved. This means that we can teach their brains to use the visual information to process it. So we're resolving it. Now, this special vision impairment has unique characteristics, and there are several. I'm going to give you 2, visual motor and complexity issues. Complexity meaning if there's a very busy pattern, they honestly cannot see what you're showing them in the foreground. Now, I've given you a very simple definition of cortical vision impairment, but hopefully it's enough to get you thinking about doing some research. Because if you do have a child in your classroom or you end up working with a child who has a vision impairment, I'm always going to remind you to do one important thing first. Ask if they have cortical vision impairment or CVI, or do they have an ocular vision impairment? An ocular vision impairment, there's a damage to their eye. Now, some of our CVI kids can have both, but if you hear that they have CVI, that's going to help you understand what you need to do as a teacher first. Now, the last of our sub little groups here is deaf blindness. Now, this isn't deaf and blind or deaf or blind. This is one term, deaf blindness. This is a dual sensory impairment of both hearing and vision. Deaf blindness is another spectrum of sensory loss. I have some students who are completely deaf and use sign language, but have have vision, oops. But then I also could have students that have a lot of usable vision or no vision and good hearing, or vice versa. When I was a deaf-blind teacher, I actually taught students that were more like what a lot of people know, Helen Keller. My students didn't have any hearing and they didn't have any vision. And we used something called tactile sign language. It was amazing. Some of you might be thinking, I could never do that. Yes, you can. It was amazing. And it was probably my favorite part of my entire teaching career, was when I was a teacher of students who were deafblind. Now, deaf blindness may be combined with an intellectual, motor, or physical disability. As we leave this slide, and as I'm telling you about different vision impairments, the one thing I want everybody to really note, so make this mental Post-it note in your brain right now. Vision impairments and cognitive impairment are not the same. It's not equal. Our kids could be typically developing students who just don't see very well. They could also be students with vision impairments who also have an intellectual disability or a cognitive impairment. But don't just assume that because you have a child with a vision impairment, that there is a cognitive impairment as well. Because if everybody was talking about something in the room and you've never seen it and you have no idea what it is, you wouldn't have any idea what everybody was talking about either. So now that you know that, this is a lot of paper stuff. A lot of people have never met somebody with a vision impairment, or they don't know the full spectrum. So we're going to cruise through a couple slides here. I'm going to show you some pictures, and I want you to see what blindness really looks like. Oops. Okay, wait a minute. Before we do that, I want to read one slide. Sorry, I rearranged this right before we did this. I wanted to share one very important thing with you about something called incidental learning. Everybody, and even if they have a disability or not, has incidental learning. This is the learning that you receive without doing anything. You just watch and observe and you understand it. I wanted to put this in here because most people don't understand that's the biggest issue for people with vision impairments, that they don't have incidental learning, or they don't have consistent incidental learning. So I'm going to read from the slide really fast. Vision is the primary learning modality and source of information for most children. No other sense can stimulate curiosity, integrate information, or invite exploration in the same way or as efficiently and fully as vision does. Vision is our largest sense, and when we don't have it, it definitely has an impact. I'm going to continue reading. The child who comes into the world without a dependable visual system or without vision at all has to navigate through the incomplete messages received through the other sensory modalities in order to put a whole picture of the world together. They've got to glean all this other information and put this together. Now, it is a myth that when you lose your vision, your hearing is better. It's more, your senses get more developed. Trust me, I have plenty of students, of parents of them who could say, yeah, my child isn't a superhero. They don't hear things better. But vision is your largest sense. So when you don't have your largest sense, you do start to rely on other things. But in no way is a child with a vision impairment a superhero. All right, the last part. So we talked about how important it is that they are putting together this information. So listen to this next part. The visually impaired child needs to determine how to organize this incomplete information and then respond to what may remain a confusing view of the world. Teachers, I really want you to focus on that because this happens in our classrooms. Our students get incomplete information and then they've got to respond to it. So what I hope to share with you are ways that we can provide more complete information. Okay, now if I'm right, now we're looking at pictures. Okay, great. So I've got lots of pictures to show you, and I'm kind of tricking you a little bit. I've got pictures of sighted people in here as well, but I want you to see this is what vision impairment truly is. So I've got a picture here of some students, myself. I'm standing on a big thing because everybody's taller than me, and we are at it's called Lagoon. It's like a Six Flags. It's an amusement park. But I hope what you're looking at, is you see some people. Now, obviously, you see somebody holding a cane. That's an indication of blindness. And remember, just because you see somebody wearing glasses doesn't mean that they have a vision impairment. But anyways, I'm not going to trick you too much. Most of the people in that picture have a vision impairment. But as we continue to scroll through, I want you to look at the faces and look at these people. Again, not every person is holding a cane. Everybody could just look like anybody else. And that's because we have some people who are totally blind, like this gentleman whose face I'm circling. And then we have people who have low vision, like this girl of the face that I'm showing you. And I didn't want to just show you one or two pictures. I really wanted to give you a lot because there's no one size fits all. So I'm showing you a picture. This is actually me on the subway, and I'm holding my newborn baby while I'm doing a lesson on the subway. And notice this random guy here who's smiling. He's not with me. He's just a guy that photobombed me. But I want you to look at everybody else who is with me. They all have vision impairments, legally blind, not getting a driver's license. Is that what you thought blindness looked like? For most people, it's not. And you can see how it's easy to forget that they have a vision impairment and that they have needs. And then again, we're looking at the picture on the right, looking at everybody. Now, I kind of did this for fun. If you see this little chubby, cute baby in my arms, that's her today. She's actually the sighted one right here. And we are actually on a really cool tubing adventure. Okay, last round of pictures. Again, look here. Now, just because they're not holding a cane doesn't mean that they're not visually impaired. This actually is another one of my daughters. So she's not visually impaired. But I want you to see what blindness really looks like. And then this last picture on my right, you see a young girl holding up, or she's wearing a black witch hat. And if you can see there's another girl, and you can see this tiny little bit of green right here. We are backstage at Wicked, the musical. And we made arrangements, and they were so generous to let us touch all of the main props. Because if you've ever seen Wicked, her hat, her spell book, those are pivotal parts of the story. And again, bringing concepts to life, I don't want to just talk about it. We touched it, we felt it, we got an idea, and we did this before so that when Elphaba goes on stage and she puts on her black hat, we have a full understanding. Remember that phrase, complete understanding? Now we know what they're talking about. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, I'm going to cruise on. Now that you've seen what my students look like and what could be yours, I want you to see what they see. And we won't spend too much time on this, but it's important to remember all of those kids out there that didn't look blind to you, this is what they see. You see the picture on the left. They see the picture on the right. Again, you see they see the picture on the left. They see on the right. So again, do you see how you can see details, but you quite can't see everything? You can see a color, but it's fuzzy. The next one that we're going to go to is glaucoma. These are all very popular vision impairments. What I want you to get an idea of is we see the full picture. Many students, not just students with glaucoma, will only see central. Their peripheral vision is fading. And another great way of seeing that is this picture down here on the corner. We see the whole picture. They see just this middle part. This is really important for you to remember. Even if this child doesn't, quote, look blind to you, this is what they see. I've got one more just to give you some other ideas. They could have blind spots in different parts of their vision. So we're looking at lots of things. We're looking at diabetic retinopathy. We're looking at cataracts. We're looking at retinitis pigmentosa, glaucoma, macular degeneration, sometimes known as Stargardt's. These are the most popular vision impairments. Now, again, there's also total blindness or light perception, but I don't think I needed to show you what that one is. But this gives you a real idea. This is the same picture, but look at how many different ways our students might see something. So remember that eccentric viewing? See this spot right here? Do you notice how that person would have to move their eyes or move their head in order to see that whole picture? I hope that was a really good understanding for everybody. I've got a last one only because I wanted to show you, most people only think of the one where they're losing peripheral. I wanted you to see a lot of people also don't have central vision, but they have good peripheral vision. So they don't see right in front, but they do see to the side. All right, before I move on to part 2, I'm going to do a very quick stop share. This is just me checking in to make sure there wasn't any questions or for me to get a thumbs up from Rushton to keep going on to the last part of my topic. Okay, I totally got my thumbs up. I'm going back to share screen. I'm clicking share right now. I am praying that my PowerPoint comes right back to me. There it is. Here we are with part 2. So now that you've understood hopefully a little bit about what blindness really is. Now what I want to talk about strategies and tips. What do you do when you're the general ed teacher and you get to partner in the education of a student with a vision impairment? So we're back looking at my slide. It's got my notebook. It says part 2. There's a clip art of the locker, audio description. All right. First thing I want you to know is I'm going to circle back to this topic called the expanded core curriculum. Now, don't read ahead. Listen to me. I'll read everything on this slide to you. First, there are experiences and concepts that are casually and incidentally learned by sighted students that must be systematically and sequentially taught to the visually impaired students. So we know that. That's our first thing. Second, what I want you to know when I say expanded core curriculum is that it is a disability-specific curriculum that does not replace academic core instruction. So we have this expanded core because there are experiences and concepts that are casually and incidentally learned by sighted people. Those concepts must be systematically and sequentially taught to students with vision impairments. It's called the expanded core curriculum. That's my job. It's very important, and you might even get sick of me saying this. This expanded core curriculum, all of you educators who hear the words core and curriculum, I'm not talking about replacing it. I'm not talking about a functional curriculum. I'm talking about a disability-specific curriculum. Now, do other disabilities need these things? Absolutely. But there are 9 designated areas to the expanded core curriculum that blind children must receive in addition to academic core curriculum. Now, these 9 designated areas, I'm going to show them to you. I won't go through them. I just want you to kind of take a mental snapshot and get an idea. This expanded core instruction is supervised by the teacher of students with vision impairments. So you will meet this specialized teacher. Sometimes they're called TVI for short, teacher of the visually impaired. You'll meet this person, they'll come in, they do more than Braille. They do more than orientation and mobility. They are there to supervise this special curriculum. Now, ECC instruction, so ECC is short for expanded core curriculum. It is taught and it needs to happen in our classrooms, and in the home, and in the community. Now, what do you need to know about this? You just need to know that there is a special curriculum that blind children need in addition to core curriculum. Your specialized teacher will advise you how to implement the expanded core. Now, here's the bonus great thing. Expanded core skills are for the child with a vision impairment, but I promise you will benefit all of the students in the classroom as you work on these skills. I'm just going to do a quick pause, and I saw something come up in the chat. I don't know if that was for me, but I don't want to move on. Nope, it's just somebody saying they're leaving, but it's okay. Have a great Thanksgiving. And we're going to go back to everything. So here I go with my share. We are back in action. What I want you to see now, I'm showing you a slide. These are the 9 areas of this expanded core curriculum. So compensatory skills, orientation and mobility, social interaction, independent living skills, recreation and leisure skills, career education, use of assistive technology, sensory efficiency skills, and self-determination. Looking at this list, you could easily agree, not just the blind child needs these skills. In fact, I'm going to be honest with you, my own children know these 9 areas, and we work on these skills. So although everybody needs these skills, for students with vision impairments, these are the things that they miss because these are casually and incidentally taught to everybody else. So we need to be very direct and explicit when we teach these concepts. Okay, but how do we teach? What do we do? That is what we are going to spend the rest of our time doing. So first, we're going to talk about strategies for young learners. And I almost want to just tell you an asterisk. The strategies that I'm telling you for these different age bands really could be used interchangeably. But I did want to focus some strategies just to different age or grade bands for you. So we're looking at a really cute picture of a young learner. There's my audio description. And now I'm moving on to my slide. Something I want you to know for our young learners, I can't stress this one enough. Tech skills start here. Don't wait to introduce technology to our students with vision impairments, right? Kindergarten, everybody has an iPad. Let our kids start to learn. You can put voiceover on. There's all different things, but we never want to wait until 4th grade to start doing tech skills. So all of my pre-K, preschool teachers, kindergarten teachers, when you're whipping out those devices or using Nearpod or Seesaw, you want to make sure that that blind child is also doing it. And we'll talk a little bit later about how to make it happen, but do not excuse them from the tech, because for people with vision impairments, technology is the great equalizer. This is what makes things accessible. And we have a real problem in our field that our kids get tech too late and they can't keep up with their peers. So we can't put this off. Oh my gosh, do I sound like I'm on a soapbox? A little bit. All right, next, tangible items and hands-on experiences. I'm going to ask everybody a question. What does salt taste like? Anybody at a loss for words? Salty. Some people in the past have said the ocean. Well, you had to have been in the ocean, swallowed up ocean water in order to know that that's salty. This is the importance of our kids getting hands-on or just getting auditory. When our kids only have to listen to everybody describing or talking to them, they never know what salt tastes like. And salt is one of the greatest things in our world. We should know what salt tastes like. So our kids always need hands-on experiences. Concept development happens when our students can physically do it. I got a lot of students that will tell me how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. The real truth, let's watch them do it. They always need hands-on. So teachers, what does this mean in the classroom? If you are holding up something and saying, look, everybody, you make sure that that blind child has a replica of what you're showing everybody, okay? Always make sure that they can touch and feel. And this is not exclusive to children who are totally blind. This is for students who are low vision as well. Any of our CVI kiddos, you want to make sure they've got it in their hands as much as possible. It is the difference between saying salt is salty and knowing because you've experienced it. All right, our young learners also need lots of sensory experiences, and this kind of dovetails to what I was just talking about. When our students get auditory and tactile opportunities, it will also open up their world more. So if our kids just sit there and they just are passive learners, we want to make sure they can hear the bell and then touch the bell, ring the bell, use their hands. But some of you who are preschool teachers or early childhood, you're probably going, well, yeah, that's what all kids need. Our kids are not an exception to that, but you want to make sure that our kids really get that opportunity. Now, I can't share this one enough, and I almost put it on every single slide after this. Have expectations, okay? Keep expectations the same as their sighted peers. And just like with our sighted peers, how we have to differentiate our instruction to meet them where they are, to meet them with their learning profile, that's good differentiation. You need to do that with a blind child, but you can't just excuse them from doing anything because they are blind. You are not doing them any favors, as much as it might seem so. There's something that we call the fairy godmother syndrome, especially with our young ones, right? They want to put something somewhere and they didn't quite do it. And you very quietly pick it up and move it for them. They go back to wonder where it is. Somebody moved it. Or they just throw something in the air and you pick it up and you go throw it away. For a totally blind child, they have no idea that you are the one moving things, picking it up. So there's a difference between letting a child fall flat on their face into danger, but also not clearing the pathway for them. They're never going to learn protective techniques. They're never going to learn how to use their cane. They're never going to learn that things exist in this world if you always are a fairy godmother and move it for them. All right. I don't think there's any questions. Hopefully this is making sense. We're going to cruise on to elementary and middle school. So we're looking at a really cute picture of two African-American students, and they are crocheting. It's really cool. It looks like it's from a mission trip, fellowship and knitting. Very cool. Okay, we're moving on. So strategies that we would use for elementary and middle school. Again, we could use this everywhere. And are you laughing? The very first thing I have on my slide is making things easier is a mistake. We call it the B for blindness. The kid deserved an F, but you gave him a B because he was blind. So don't reduce their work. Don't let them off the hook, etc. if it is not stated in their IEP. If their IEP says they do need extended test time or reduced workload, well, then those are specific things for that child. But again, they are learning how to work just like any other child. So if you just let them off the hook or let them do something easy, you are not helping them. You're not helping them. Okay, I'm a broken record. I'm moving on. Next, and I put this one in all capital letters at the end, accessibility is a must. We are not in 1984 anymore, where things were really hard to make accessible. This is 2020. Things can be accessible, and we must remember that. So how do you do that? One, I want you to learn simple, accessible measures to include your student. One very simple, accessible measure is exactly what I've been doing my whole webinar. I've been describing, right? I didn't go on a tangent describing everything, but I'm giving you critical information about the visual things that you are seeing. So accessibility doesn't mean a tech device. Accessibility could be working with a peer who could read things. It could be, and I'm going to talk about this, using white on black or black on white, that contrast. It's now more accessible to that student. There are very simple things that you can do. And one of the biggest frustrations of a blind child is when a teacher refuses to make something accessible. All right, where do you get this information from? Collaborate early and often with your teacher of students with vision impairments on how to do this. That specialized teacher will tell you, do they need it in Braille? Could you email it to them and they can listen to the information? So if it's not in Braille, do they need it in 20 size font or 26 size font? Everybody's using all those cute little fonts and the cursive writing. No bueno. Most times, Arial or a nice bold font. Any of the KG fonts. If you're a teacher who knows all these things, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Bold, easy to read fonts. And accessibility is a must. That's one of the fastest ways that blind children get left behind in education, when things are not accessible. Okay, the last on my list, pre-teaching. Some of you might know what this means, some of you don't. Pre-teaching gives our students a way to anticipate what's going to happen. And I can't stress this enough. Pre-teaching is not just a one and done, do it once. You might have to do it often. Pre-teaching gives our kids a heads up about what you're going to teach. Because if you're teaching a brand new concept and you're showing everything, when our kids get pre-teaching, it allows them to go, okay, I know it's big, I know it's round, I know there's something on the left. They don't have to be struggling to figure out what you're talking about. They already know, so that they can focus directly on the content. All right, we are cruising on to middle and high school. And I kind of clumped everything in weird ways, but it's only because these groups kind of blend over. And we're looking at a picture. It looks like a band director because I can see like an orchestra band holding up their brass instruments. And we see the perspective from the band teacher. Simple, easy audio description. And you know what, teachers? If you butcher your audio description, our blind kids are so appreciative that you even tried, that they have grace for you. So I do this a lot. I grew up with a woman who's never seen me. My whole life has been audio describing. It takes practice, but give it a go, try it out. And remember, on documents, when you see alt text, that's what it's there for. It's there for blind kids, blind people, so that they know what the image is. All right, so middle and high school. Now, keep in mind, everything that I've shared on the previous slides still applies, okay? I just wanted to break things up a little bit more so that you could digest it. But when I was thinking, what are the critical things that my middle and high school teachers need to know? This is my short list. First, their para should not be doing the work. Kind of seems like a no-brainer, right? But I currently, right now, have a student, and it was widely known by everybody that his para was doing all of his work. And so it seems like a good idea, but it's not. And I don't know about any of you, I already survived high school chemistry. There's no way I ever want to do that again in life ever. So why are our paras doing this? A very common mistake. So classroom teachers, double check that that para is not doing that child's homework. That para is not their teacher. Paras are wonderful and they are important, but they are not the teacher. You should be collaborating with that teacher of students with vision impairments. Also, I just want to bring up, since we're talking about paras don't need to always be with our students, because if you're in first grade, who wants to go hang out with the kid whose mom's with them? Okay, so our paras are usually instructed to step back on the playground, in the hallways, unless that child has a very unique need. That para does not need to accompany them like a shadow, okay? It's very important, so double check that. And to break it up a little bit, I now put my expectations on the second bullet point instead of the first. Expectations, expectations, expectations. The just right expectations. You know this, teachers, you're doing it for every other child, but you must have expectations for this child. Do you notice how I put it on every slide? Because if there's one of the most debilitating things that truly disables my students when I get them to high school, is low expectations that were given to them throughout their life. You can come up with just right expectations. I believe in you. You're a good teacher. All right. This one I shared in, I actually got I put on social media, what should I share in this presentation? I shared it out to a lot of my colleagues. And so I got some really good feedback. One of them, and this is very, very relevant for right now, as we're doing so much more over Canvas or Google Classroom or different places, assignments need to be named in a consistent manner. This means don't rename an assignment 1, week 1, do this, and then assignment 2. Name it consistently, because the child with a vision impairment is using some kind of device. They're either using a screen reader device or refreshable braille, which means the braille comes up and they can read it. And it frustrates a lot of people when they don't know what the assignment was actually named. So consistency. Now, of course, that's something that would benefit every other child, as does having expectations. So you can see that a lot of the strategies that really benefit students with vision impairments benefit everybody. All right, now, as we continue to move towards educational technology, which I love, by the way, always ask this question. Ask about the accessibility of the tech platform that you are using, because you need to know what is my student with a vision impairment going to experience. All tech is not created equal. So when our students are using a screen reader, which reads everything on the screen, or they're using an assistive device like a braille note, it's like a special computer with braille. I think we'll have time, I can even show you some things. That device won't read everything the same way as it does on your screen. So you really need to ask, is there an immersive reader, right? Now that immersive reader feature is becoming more and more popular. Pear Deck already uses it in theirs. Nearpod has finally come out with all of their new things, always have that immersive reader, which again, benefits everybody, not just our students. But you really want to make sure the best way to do this, send it over to that teacher and say, hey, we have to start using Schoology, or your student's gonna have to make a sway, or they're gonna have to be on Teams or Zoom. Ask, how is the accessibility for the blind child? It just helps you to really know these things. All right, now what I did, and truth be told, I could give you a whole webinar just on the strategies, but I wanted to narrow it down to something very important. These are strategies for any grade level. The very first one, be specific. Planning of materials to be adapted requires a coordinated effort. Our students need comparable materials at the same time peers receive them. I'm going to be honest with you, my Gen Ed friends. You can't tell us the night before, oh, I need this in Braille. It's not just it really does take an effort. And we realize that things change, or you now have to go at something new. We understand that. But if you could understand accessibility a little bit more, it would be helpful. Previewing, giving our students the PowerPoints or the slides before you teach them, or as you teach them, so that our students can have that slide or PowerPoint on their device as you're showing it to everybody. Those are great ways. But I really want to make sure you know this. Planning of materials to be adapted requires a coordinated effort. Getting an entire textbook in Braille is not an Amazon Prime kind of situation. There's a lot of effort and time that must go into place. So please work with your teacher of students with vision impairments. Please really note that line. Our students need comparable materials at the same time peers receive them. All right. Second, this is an easy one for elementary all the way up. When posting things like for our students on the board, or any of our students, always do the same subject, calendar, or material in the same area of the board so that our students know where to look. I'm even going to take that a step farther. When you put something in on the information on the board, use a big highlighter, use a big square, do it in a fun color, do it in a bold color, and put that information around that box, because then the student goes, okay, to do things or in seat work are always outlined in red. So they go to the red box, they can see it, right? Homework is always outlined in the blue box. Again, strong contrast. You don't want to use a blue and a purple in the same area. Not a lot of contrast, but keep it consistent so that they know where to look. I'm a big Google Slides user, and I always start my lessons with a Google slide that outlines my learning target, homework, classwork. I'm sure many of you do this. I use the same exact slide template so that my students always know and they can scan and I know it's accessible. So you can always do things like that if you're doing it digitally or if you're doing it in person. Consistency matters. This one, and I'm going to next, is something that every blind person, whether they are a student or an adult, will always appreciate. Use specific directional words. Over there, kind of this way, that way, not helpful when you're talking. To your left, to your right, it's in front of you. You don't need to become a turn-by-turn GPS system. Keep walking forward, take a step. No, but you can say what you're looking for is well in front of you. Keep going, right? But you want to use specific directional words. Okay, and this next tip I'm giving you is my favorite tip for everybody. You want to know your students' what and where vision, okay? Because for you to learn that your student has retinopathy of prematurity doesn't help you to know what you're going to do during math class. What will help you is to know their what and where vision, meaning what can they see and where can they see it. They can see that I'm standing in front of them, but they can't see me if I stand in front of the windows, right? What can they see and where can they see it? And then the next question, do they have light sensitivity? So that's a really big factor for a lot of our students. So check and see what their light sensitivity is. And last but never least, and I think anybody who has a disability would echo this one to you, it's a great reminder. Remember to see ability before you see disability. It's easy to see a white cane or a braille writer or really thick glasses, but they are so much more than their vision impairments, and they can do so much more than you think. It might be a different path, but you're already making different paths for this student whose language isn't English first, or has a learning disability, or doesn't eat and they're hungry, right? We're doing all of these things to differentiate. Remember, our students need that too, even when they don't look blind to you. So always remember to see ability before disability. All right. This is a great, I'm just going to read this one on there. We're kind of getting to the end. There's a great quote that says, what we do is care for our students, for their learning, and for ourselves. And we're looking at a picture from behind of a boy putting his arm around a younger boy, and they're standing together. And now, what if you're like, oh my gosh, I want to learn more? So the very last slide that you see is how you can stay connected with me. So one, I put my image up there. I am super out there on social media, always sharing tips, tricks, best practices. You can find me at 9 More Than Core, which is the number 9 More Than Core, because there are 9 more areas for blind kids than the core. You can find me on Facebook or Instagram. I write a blog called The Independent Little Bee, full of different ways that we can teach a variety of abilities and vision impairments. And last, there's my email address, which is Robbin, C, Robbin, C as in cat, at usdb.org, as in Utah School Deafblind.org. All right, we've got, I think, a little bit of time for questions, or I could even show you a couple of cool devices, or we could end. I'm going to wait for Rushton to tell me what we should do.
All right, so we have a mountain of good information for folks. Thank you so much, Robin. You mentioned some devices to show. If you can take a minute or two to show those, let's do that.
Okay, so I'm gonna show you this device. This is called a Mantis. Hold on a second. My devices are on top of my space bar. So this device is a Bluetooth keyboard. I'm gonna hold it up close so for you to see that it is a QWERTY keyboard, but this underneath right here is a refreshable braille cell. Keyword refreshable braille. So as the student is reading the document, the braille comes underneath their fingertips. And as they advance down the lines, so does their braille. So they can read all of their information in braille. I love this the most because I can use this as a QWERTY input and not a braille input. So I can just type. It is a Bluetooth device that Bluetooth to anything. Amy, I do see your question. I'm going to show one more thing, and then I will give you some quick tips that will help you. The next thing I'm going to show you is a very popular device. The one I just showed you just came out. This device is very popular. This is called a Braille Note Touch. This in itself is a computer that you are looking at. You see the Braille keys. That's what this are. If you were to look at an old school Perkins Braille writer, which we totally still use, by the way, these are the keys that we write Braille with. Now what's super cool, and most people don't know, is you can flip it up. This is a touch screen, so you can see what the students see, and they can also do Braille that way. But this is a computer. It's got an SD slot. They can access the internet. They can download apps. They can do a ton of things. This is a computer. It also still has that refreshable braille underneath. So a lot of students will access their email. That's what I do. I can do email. I can do Google Classroom. I can do anything from this device. If you see that a student is using a Braille Note Touch, that's the name of this device, Braille Note Touch, or anything that looks similar to this type of device, okay? You want to make sure that what they see on their device is the same thing you see on yours. I tried to download a dictionary app that I could visually see awesome, and it was a nightmare on the Braille Note. So quick question, what does your device see? So those are two examples of cutting edge, new and popular assistive tech devices. I'm just going to quickly go to Amy's question. Hers is, how can I work with a deafblind student remote online? Well, you're going to think I'm a politician because I'm not going to give you a straight answer. One, it's going to depend on that student. I have deafblind students that I use a sign language interpreter for, and I pin the interpreter so that they can see the interpreter side by side with me. If this is a child with more multiple impairments, I would recommend that you are using their communication symbol system and that they have that symbol system. Some great resources for working with students who are deafblind is nationaldb.org. I'll type a few things in there to give you some ideas.
Robin, go ahead and add those links to the chat while I wind a few things down.
Oh, perfect. I will do that. I will do the direct hyperlink for everybody.
All right. So everybody, thank you very much for joining us. The opportunity to get such an in-depth look at the different strategies that are out there and that can be beneficial to all of your kids, and especially your students who have visual impairments is a treat for us for sure. We hope that you'll take a look at our newsletter that comes from nextvista.org. I've got a blog at Inspiring Improvement, which is designed to help you see new possibilities for how you think of yourself professionally as an educator. And there are books about becoming better as a teacher, helping your school become a better place for everyone, and helping leaders see possibilities in tech that they may not have seen before. So if you have questions, hold on, and after we finish the recording, we can hit more of those. You're seeing on the screen a question mark made of puzzle pieces. That's our symbol for our questions each week. But we also have on the screen now a little picture with a Bitmoji of Susan behind it. And Susan, why don't you tell us how people can stay in touch with you?
Hi there. Yeah, my name is Susan, and you can find me on the internet at Tech Coach Susan, because I'm Susan and I'm a tech coach. Get it? And you can also find me sharing under the hashtag K2Can2, because we really do want to celebrate what our littlest learners can do. Thank you so much today, Robin. I learned a ton today, and that was a lot of wonderful information.
And for me, I am interested in finding ways every week that we can inspire you to see new possibilities for the kids in your classroom, to reach those kids you may not have reached before. And so we thank you very much for being part of what we were doing today. And we hope that you will join us at our next program, which will be December the 3rd, when we will say hello HyperDocs, as we have one of the originators of the HyperDoc movement with us. So we will, with our live group, we will continue to work on some ideas. And as Robin has said, your issue is how you see your students. What kind of expectations do you have for them? As you look for opportunities to see how you might bring something new to their world, hopefully you are finding ways to reach more kids all across your classroom, whatever classroom may mean at the moment. Thank you again for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye-bye.